What is the pro-life movement and what does it stand for? By Eileen M. Castro. Pro-life versus pro-choice. The pro-life movement is a complex and controversial topic that has been a contentious issue in American politics for decades. This PowerPoint will explore the history and goals of the pro-life movement, the effects of anti-abortion activism on women's health, and the debate over personhood and fetal rights. It will examine how anti-abortion activists claim to be pro-life and whether this is true. The movement is rooted in the late 19th century when the Catholic Church began opposing abortion. This movement then experienced a resurgence in the late 1960s and 1970s as the Roe v. Wade ruling was handed down. The Church and how it became involved in abortion rights. Many believe the Church has been involved in the pro-life movement since its inception, and its position on the topic has never wavered, but that is a fallacy. The Church used to believe abortions were miracles, and many early abortions were carried out by people who would eventually gain sainthood. Examples of these would be St. Thomas Aquinas, Bridget of Kildare, Ciaran of Sigear, Koenig of Agabo, and Aid MacBrick. All of these saints were revered as miracle workers for their ability to end unwanted pregnancies. The Church once believed that a fetus was not a human until they gained their souls, which they believe occurred around the 18th week. The change in the Church's thinking began around 1580 when Pope Sixtus came into power and declared all abortions as homicide and would excommunicate anyone who had one. This belief remained in effect for 3 years until a new pope, Pope Gregory, was chosen and reversed the religious law. The Church's belief remained reverted for 278 years until another pope came in and changed it back. In 1869, Pope Pius started following the path of Pope Sixtus, and this is the current stance of the Church. Politics and abortion. Contrary to popular belief, the Conservative Party was not always against abortion. The Republican Party had no issues with abortion until Carter's presidency. Around the time of Carter's presidency, they realized that Democrats were making headway into southern and western states that were traditionally red states, causing the Republicans to lose seats in the House and Senate. So they teamed up with preachers like Jerry Falwell to start using scare tactics and rhetoric to drum up the base and help them retain power. The movement took shape under Reagan and Bush. For 12 years, the moral majority was pushed to the 50 million Roman Catholics in the U.S., hence the creation of the pro-life movement in the U.S. What is pro-life? Pro-life is defined as being opposed to abortion and euthanasia. Pro-life makes no mention of how to care for these individuals once they are born, which is what leaves many feeling as Miriam, quoted below, feels. People who oppose abortion often call themselves pro-life. However, the only life many of them are concerned with is the life of the fertilized egg, embryo, or fetus. They are much less concerned about the life of women who have unintended pregnancies or the welfare of children after they're born. In fact, many people who call themselves pro-life support capital punishment, aka the death penalty, and oppose child welfare legislation. Miriam at Planned Parenthood, October 16, 2019. Pro-pregnancy or pro-life? Many would argue that pro-life is the incorrect terminology for the driving force behind the movement. Many politicians and people in general who claim to be pro-life are against social services/welfare. Many of them are also against universal health care system that would ensure all citizens have health insurance. They have no answers about how to care for these babies once born. While many say they can be adopted, the truth is we have over 117,446 children as of 2020 currently waiting to be adopted in the U.S. alone. The fact remains most families want healthy Caucasian children under the age of 2, and the majority of children waiting to be adopted are either above the age of 2 or non-Caucasian. Children wait an average of 3 years to get adopted. Many adoptions take place outside of the U.S. due to it being easier in some countries to adopt and less complicated as there is less of a chance that birth parents will try and take the baby back. This causes an issue with the adopt, don't abort mantra. This once again leaves the child in a precarious position of needing to be cared for by the government, whether in the care of their biological parent or in the foster care/adoption system. Reversing Roe and its effects of anti-abortion activism on women's health and the debate over personhood and fetal rights. Many states have either tried to or successfully enacted laws that state fetuses are people and are entitled to the same rights as a born human. Many of these laws have been subject to scrutiny as this allows doctors, clinical staff, and likely in the future, the mother of the unborn child to be tried for homicide. Currently, they are going after providers and anyone who assists a mother in obtaining an abortion. But this is just the tip of the iceberg of what the future may hold for women. Many are fearful that the rich will still be able to access safe abortions, while the underprivileged will have to seek out less safe and sanitary forms of abortion. The term back alley abortion has been brought up in several speaking points. Another problem with the newly enacted laws is that many physicians don't know when it's okay to administer an abortion for a woman, which has recently left several women in states where with these laws in dangerous positions. Many women who wanted their pregnancies and found out that there was a severe defect with their child or their own lives are in peril if they continue the pregnancy have had to flee their states and travel long distances to get the appropriate medical care. It would be safe to say that the lives of the mothers are not valued in the eyes of the pro-life movement, as many of these states have also made attempts to pass laws that offer no exemptions for the life of the mother. So this begs the question, what is so pro-life about this movement that they value the life of the unborn over a living, breathing person? If they are pro-life, why do they cause death? One argument about the pro-life movement is that it has been proven that some are not pro-life, as they actually cause death in the name of their movement. The following people have been murdered by pro-life activists: Garrett Swayze, a police officer; Kiari Stewart, Jennifer Murkowski, Dr. David Gunn, John Bayard Britton, James H. Barrett, Dr. George Tiller, Shannon Loney, Leanne Nichols, whose photos you'll see on the next slide, Dr. Barnett Slepian, Robert Sanderson, and many more. One has to wonder, if these folks are pro-life, how are they so comfortable with taking a life on their terms? Here are some pictures. The bottom left is actually one that just occurred within the past month. The radicalization of pro-life movement. The pro-life movement has existed in the United States since the landmark Roe v. Wade decision in 1973. It was initially characterized by peaceful protests, lobbying efforts, and grassroots organizing to promote the protection of unborn life. However, this movement has undergone a significant shift towards radicalization in recent years. The adoption of extreme tactics has marked this trend by some pro-life activists, including violence against abortion providers and clinics. The pro-life movement, which opposes abortion and advocates for protecting human life from conception to natural death, is a relatively recent phenomenon that emerged in the United States in the 1960s and 1970s. According to D.K. Williams, author of The Rise of the Tea Party, Political Discontent and Corporate Media in the Age of Obama, the origins of the pro-life movement can be traced back to the Catholic Church's opposition to abortion and contraception, as well as to the feminist movement's critique of the medical establishment's control over women's bodies. While the Catholic Church has long been a vocal opponent of abortion, it was not until the 1960s that the issue became a focus of political activism, particularly in response to the liberalization of abortion laws. At the time, feminist activists began to challenge the patriarchal medical establishment's authority over reproductive health, demanding greater control over their bodies. This convergence of social and political forces gave rise to the pro-life movement, which sought to protect the unborn and promote a culture of life. Over time, the campaign has grown in size and influence, mobilizing millions of Americans to advocate to protect human life. However, the movement has also faced criticism from those who argue that it places too much emphasis on the fetus at the expense of women's rights and autonomy. Despite these criticisms, the pro-life movement remains a powerful force in American politics and society. Williams, 2015. The shift towards radicalization has been a growing concern in recent years. According to L. Dawson, 2019, radicalization is a process by which an individual or group adopts extreme views or practices that deviate from mainstream norms. This shift towards radicalization can be attributed to various factors, including social and economic inequities, political instability, and the rise of extremist ideologies. Sometimes individuals may feel alienated or marginalized within their communities, leading them to seek alternative groups that offer a sense of belonging and purpose. Additionally, the internet and social media have played a significant role in facilitating the spread of extremist ideologies, providing individuals with access to a broader range of extremist content, allowing them to reconnect with like-minded individuals across the globe. As such, efforts must be made to prevent and counter radicalization, including early intervention and support for individuals at risk of being radicalized, as well as to address the root causes of radicalization, such as social and economic inequities. Additionally, it is essential to address the role of the internet and social media in facilitating radicalization through measures such as increased regulation and monitoring of extremist content online. Ultimately, it is only through a comprehensive and collaborative approach that we can effectively address the shift towards radicalization and promote a more peaceful and inclusive society. Extremist groups have been known to employ tactics that are intended to create fear and chaos, and these tactics can have serious consequences. For example, the use of violence by extremist groups can lead to injuries and fatalities among group members and innocent civilians. In addition, the use of extreme tactics can also harm the group's reputation and credibility. According to M.D. Stevenson, B. Schramm, E.F.D. Canetti, et al., in their article The Dynamics of Extremist Violence and Longitudinal Analysis, extremist groups that use violent tactics are often viewed as less legitimate by the general public, which can make it harder for the group to gain support and recruit new members. Moreover, using extreme tactics can also increase the likelihood of retaliation by law enforcement agency, further escalating the violence and leading to even more negative consequences for the group. In short, while extremist groups may believe that extreme tactics are necessary to achieve their goals, the reality is that these tactics can have severe and far-reaching consequences that can ultimately undermine the group's objectives. In conclusion, the pro-life movement has undergone significant changes in recent years, leading to a radicalization of its beliefs and tactics. While the movement's core values remain the same, such as the opposition of abortion, the movement's methods have become increasingly extreme and aggressive. This has created a divisive and polarizing atmosphere with little room for compromise or dialogue. As society grapples with complex reproductive rights issues, pro-life advocates must reconsider their approach and seek more constructive and inclusive ways to advance their cause. Ultimately, we hope to achieve a more just and equitable society for all by finding common ground and working together. Conclusion. It is my personal belief that many who claim to be pro-life start out with good intentions but become radicalized from the force-feeding of disinformation. People, particularly those with a faith so deep it is the core of their very existence, tend to be easily swayed and preyed upon by others who use their fear of God and drive them into fanatical or radical frenzy. It is my personal opinion that the pro-life movement is not pro-life at all. It is pro-pregnancy and birth, and anything after that isn't their problem.